I didn't find out my ex-husband hired private investigators the day it happened. I found out the day his lawyer's voice started shaking. But let me start from the beginning, because this story didn't begin with revenge. It began with disbelief. After our divorce, people kept asking me why I was so calm. No screaming, no public breakdowns, no messy social media posts. They didn't know that calm was the only thing I had left. When the judge finalized the settlement, my ex-husband stood there confident, almost smug. He walked out with most of the assets, the house we built, and something more valuable than money, his reputation intact. I walked out with a small apartment, a stack of legal papers, and whispers following me like shadows. The rumor was simple and cruel. I had lied during the divorce, about finances, about emotional abuse, about why the marriage collapsed. He made sure that version spread. At first, it was subtle. Mutual friends stopped returning calls, invitations disappeared. At a charity event, someone I barely knew smiled politely and said, "I heard things didn't add up in court." Didn't add up. That phrase followed me everywhere. What I didn't know was that behind my back, my ex-husband was funding a private investigation, not quietly, aggressively. He wanted proof that I was a liar, proof he could wave like a trophy. He wanted to destroy whatever credibility I had left. The investigators followed me. They watched where I went, who I met, what I bought, how I lived. I noticed strange cars more than once, a man pretending to scroll on his phone too close to my building, a woman who kept appearing at the same coffee shop at the same time every week. I felt it, but I didn't react. I had learned something in my marriage. Reacting gave him control. So I stayed boring. I worked, I came home, I kept receipts, I documented everything, not because I knew about the investigators, but because survival had trained me to keep records like armor. Months passed. Then came the letter, a legal notice accusing me of hiding income, falsifying statements, and manipulating the court. My ex-husband was reopening the case. He claimed he had new evidence. I remember sitting at my kitchen table, the paper trembling slightly in my hands, not from fear, but from exhaustion. How long was I supposed to keep defending myself against lies? My lawyer read the notice carefully, then looked at me with an expression I didn't recognize. "Did you know," she asked slowly, "that he submitted a private investigator's preliminary report with this?" I didn't, but suddenly everything made sense. What didn't make sense yet was why she looked almost amused. The hearing was scheduled quickly. My ex-husband walked in confident, carrying himself like a man about to be vindicated. He avoided my eyes, but I could feel his certainty filling the room. His attorney spoke first. They painted a picture of me as deceptive, calculating, unstable. According to them, I had hidden assets, staged my independence, and manipulated sympathy. Then they introduced the investigation: surveillance logs, financial tracking, background checks. I listened quietly. I didn't interrupt. I didn't object emotionally. I let them talk. Then my lawyer stood. She didn't start by defending me. She asked one question: "May we review the full investigation file, not just the summary?" The room shifted. Apparently, in his eagerness to expose me, my ex-husband had submitted more than he realized. The court ordered the full documents to be entered into evidence. That's when everything changed, because the investigators hadn't just followed me, they had followed money. They traced transfers connected to accounts my ex-husband claimed didn't exist, shell companies tied to properties not disclosed in the divorce, payments disguised as consulting fees routed through third parties. The more they dug into my life, the more they accidentally documented his. Dates didn't align, transactions overlapped, assets appeared where none were declared. The judge leaned forward. My ex-husband's attorney stopped speaking. and the investigator, subpoenaed unexpectedly, confirmed something that shattered the room. They were hired to prove I was lying. Instead, they uncovered a pattern of financial concealment tied to my ex-husband. Fraud. Not a mistake, not a misunderstanding, a system. I watched the color drain from his face as exhibits were displayed on the screen. I watched him collapse into panic. He finally looked at me, not with anger, but fear. The judge called for a recess. In the hallway, his lawyer wouldn't meet his eyes. The whispers this time weren't about me. When court resumed, the tone was different. Questions were sharp, unforgiving. The investigation that was meant to destroy me became the backbone of a new inquiry into him. The case was reopened, assets frozen, authorities notified. I didn't smile, I didn't celebrate, I just breathed. Weeks later, the ruling came down. The settlement was overturned, properties reassigned, financial penalties imposed. His reputation, so carefully protected, fractured publicly. The same people who once questioned my honesty suddenly wanted my version of events. I didn't give it, because this wasn't about winning socially. It was about truth finally standing without me having to scream it. The last time I saw my ex-husband, he looked smaller, not because he lost money, but because he lost control. He hired investigators to prove I was lying. All they proved was that I had been telling the truth the whole time. So, if you're listening to this and someone is obsessively trying to expose you, ask yourself why. People don't dig that hard unless they're terrified of what might be found. Sometimes the trap meant for you becomes the mirror they can't escape. Thank you for listening to my story. If you've ever been doubted, underestimated, or accused just for surviving, like, share, and subscribe. Not every truth needs defending. Some just need time to surface.